say I got the touch, got the touch. They say you got that too, got the touch. They say I got.
My name is Noah Hill and I'm from Venice. I think I've had a really long and difficult journey with acceptance. I think growing up as a surfer, we cast a lot of judgment, at least for me. Letting go of that judgment and becoming a more accepting person of myself and others has made my world open up a lot, and I felt a lot more connected.
Maybe you come around my side of town. You got that love.
When did you start your silver?
I caught my first wave at the pier on the north side when I was 3. My parents met on set together, so my mom had this really big, high-stress, well-paying job. So my dad ended up being a stay-at-home dad to raise my sister and I. And during that time, he would go to the Cow's End and he would write every morning. That was his thing. He got super into writing screenplays, and he would always take me with to go to the Cow with him and write. And then they had like Julianne's music class up in the top room. So I'd go to music class, and then I remember when we were little, my dad would take me from the Cow and out onto the pier, the sand dunes, to watch the surfers. And I vividly remember the first, like one of my first memories as a kid was going up and over the sand dunes and seeing all the guys out in the water and being like, Dad, I have to try that. Like, I need to learn how to surf. And my dad's a really athletic, adventurous guy, and he had surfed before, but he wasn't like a surfer. So we kind of went on this journey together of learning how to surf. And I remember him saying to me, he got me a boogie board first, and he was like, if you can stand up on this boogie board, then I'll get you a surfer. And he said literally the first wave, I just stood up on it, like really easily. And he's like, oh, I have to get this kid a surfboard now. So he got me, you know, this little foamy, and I remember this so well. The first day he got me the foamy, I was like so excited. I think it was like the summer, it was still warm out, you know, so I was like, oh, we're gonna take this down to the beach and try it. So the first day he got me the board, I actually slept with it in my bed. Like, I put it in my bed and I slept with it. And then we woke up that morning and he took me surfing. Yeah, he took me to the pier and I caught my first little wave on this orange foamy, and that was kind of how it all got started.
What's your connection with the Z-Boys era?
I almost felt like, in a way, I was raised by that. As a kid growing up, I idolized those guys, and you know, every morning I'd go surf Venice Pier, and there's always a chance of seeing, you know, somebody really cool and influential out in the water. And I think, you know, it influenced my style as a surfer, but not only that, it influenced, you know, who I am as a person. My dad, you know, he met Guy and Alix, who were kind of super influential in guiding me on what surfing is and what you're supposed to do with a kid who has a lot of talent for something but has no idea what to do with the talent. So it was kind of like, you know, my connection with Venice made me the surfer I am, because without all of those people guiding me, you know, I wouldn't have been able to foster the talent that I had. When I was 12, my parents got sick of living in LA. We moved to Maui, and it was a nice transition because, you know, growing up in Venice, we don't get the best waves, so you tell a 12-year-old surfer we're packing up and moving to Maui, like, it's pretty exciting, and spent a lot of time going back and forth between Venice and Maui. I spent most summers here from ages 12 to 18.
How long was like from when you start to surf to start to be sponsored?
Um, my first sponsor actually was when I was like 8 or 9, or probably, yeah, 8, and it was for stand-up paddleboarding, because we would go to Hawaii, you know, once a season, and I would always stand-up paddleboard there because my dad did it. And so my first sponsor was for stand-up paddleboarding, and then I rode for Arbor skateboards and snowboards when I was like really little too, before they were like a big thing. And I was probably like around like 8 or 9. But I think I'd say like my first real sponsorship was O'Neill. So that would have been maybe a 8-year gap between like starting and getting sponsored by O'Neill. When I was 12, I won like all the national contests, like the Surfing America, NSSA, both of them. Like I won everything that year. And then after that year, they were like looking at my trajectory, like obviously this kid is gonna do something with surfing.
I'm watching you surf and everybody like, oh my God, this guy is the best surfer from his age.
Yeah.
Just want to hear from you if it was pressure, how was it? What was it, you know, if it was your intention to be world champion or was people like pressuring you?
I think when I signed my first professional contract when I was like 11 or 12, I think at that point I started to feel a bit of pressure. I think it was really hard, especially for me, because my parents didn't come from surfing. Like my dad didn't grow up surfing, my mom didn't grow up surfing, you know. They're from landlocked states. My dad's from Oklahoma, my mom's from Arizona. So I think a lot of the norm in the surf industry at the time was like a lot of kids coming up, their parents were around the industry and around surfing. So I don't think companies felt that they needed to really hold somebody's hand and show them what to do. But for me, I probably needed that a little bit more because I just didn't have a big understanding of the surf industry. Yeah, but I worked with Brad Gerlach for a long time, and that relationship was actually fostered through Guy Okazaki and his wife Alix, and they were the ones who put me with Brad. I think Brad is one of the most interesting personalities in surf history. I think, you know, he had a crazy competitive career. He got second in the world. I look at Brad as this like extremely creative, intelligent person, and I think that he was, you know, one of the best surfers in the world at his time, and I don't think he liked competing, so he kind of went the route of being one of the first free surfers and first guys to really get paid to be creative and surf on his own terms. And then, you know, he transitioned into doing the big wave stuff and then came to doing the coaching with, you know, me, the Coffin Brothers, Taro. And then O'Neill did a really good job of keeping Brad with us and kind of like, you know, showing me the way through the competitive scene. But I mean, Brad's kind of a guy like me, you know, he's very like creative and introspective. So I feel like him and I working together on something, you know, to be the quote best at a sport maybe wasn't the best way to go about it if you're just looking at like, you know, pure results driven way of doing things. Like I love everything that I got out of surfing, but like they just really kind of left a lot of things up to me. Like I chose to stop, you know, doing amateur contests when I was like 12. And it's like that kind of in hindsight doesn't seem like the best idea. And I stopped doing pro juniors when I was 14 and went straight to the QS. And it doesn't matter how good you surf as a 14-year-old, you're still like a little kid, like you have a little kid body and you're competing against grown men. So by the time I was 17, I'm thinking, well, I haven't really made a lot of progress here. Like I'm getting wild cards into 10,000s, which would be like the Challenger series now. And I'm, you know, struggling, and I didn't have the patience to stick with it and go like, yeah, I started a little too early, but I can like, you know, I can still get where I want to go. And then by the time I was 18 and the contracts were up, I had all these crazy injuries and a lot of really hard times. And I was just like, my mom kind of convinced me to go to college and go that route. So that's kind of my journey with competitive surfing and riding for O'Neill. And I haven't done a contest since I was 17, so I guess I must have really felt the pressure of it if I stopped doing it.
Who was putting all this pressure?
I mean, as a cop-out, I could blame everyone else, but I really do think at the end of the day, it was me putting the pressure on myself, because there was no nobody ever said directly to me, you need to be the next John or the next Gabriel, but the way that my sponsors treated me and the way that they put the KPIs in my contract, and they said like, hey, if you win these contests, you'll get X amount of money and your contract will be renewed, and all of these things, you know, the pressure of that, like the financial pressure, I think that insinuated that I had to make this big jump at such a young age. So then it was kind of my like voice within myself saying like, okay, if I'm not like meeting these benchmarks at the same time that my heroes did, then I'm not really like successful in my own eyes. Not really until after did I realize like this was crazy. Like I was kind of pushing for it, because I felt like the way that I surfed, I felt like I could make heats in the QS, and like I could probably make the tour before I was 18. So and they were giving me the confidence that I could. So I honestly felt that, you know, at the time I was like, this is what I need to do. And then it wasn't until after where I was looking back and I was like, that was fucking crazy.
Long journey.
Yeah.
A lot of happiness.
Yeah.
And a lot of pain.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of physical pain and a lot of emotional pain, and I learned so much about myself through the journey. You know, I learned a lot about my feelings and emotions just through all of these life challenges that you don't really get if you're just a normal kid going to high school. I quietly dealt with it really bad. I would just have these, I don't know, I would let the losses linger for so long. Like, you know, I couldn't just lose a heat and then a day later let it go. Like I would just let it fester in my head. And I think that's what made it hard, you know, as a young kid starting to do the QS when you're 14, 15 is you don't know how to deal with those losses yet. But I love everything that I got out of surfing.
Everyone had the time for their own healing,
Yeah.
their own success. So I think that was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, very.
Yeah.
Especially with the kids, like they should have orientated you. Do you think that should tell you like, oh, you're not ready for that, you should like wait?
I think in terms of like, if I wanted to have a successful surf career, yes, I think they could have guided me better. But then I think on the other hand, it did allow me to like make my own decisions and deal with the consequences of my decisions. It is like good that I learned those lessons early. But then in terms of like wanting to be one of the best surfers in the world in the eyes of like WSL or Stab or whatever, I think that probably was a bad decision to start doing all those contests at such a young age and to, you know, take the path that I did. But it taught me a lot about how to handle my emotions, because it is easy to just crumble and say, I don't want to do this anymore. But when you're competing, there's not the option of, you know, succumbing to those feelings. Like you got to get up every day and you've got to be disciplined and determined, and that's, you know, those are the only things that are gonna take you to competitive success, is to have that discipline and determination, because without that you're just kind of like a blob of energy not getting things done. Say I'm, you know, 22 years old now. I've had this professional surfing upbringing. I've had like, you know, 2 years of being a conscious adult where I've actually like chosen what I'm doing with my life. And, read what I want to read, done what I want to do, like actually made decisions for myself. So I feel like I'm just now becoming a conscious person, and I feel like my journey lately has just been figuring out the person that I want to be and how I can give back to the world around me, if that makes sense. I'm definitely still a little bit lost with where I am in life, but I do know that over the last 2 years, I've found that my journey is moving towards a place of unconditional kindness. I feel like the world right now is a scary and, I don't know, it's a very daunting place. And I felt like growing up, I was so unconscious of who I was, and I was probably kind of an asshole to so many people that I'm having like this huge pushback of the person I was, and really, trying to be a kinder, more friendly person to my neighbors. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot lately, and kind of why I've been doing the things that I've been doing with, my writing projects and that stuff. So I just finished my first feature film script. The reason why I have been writing the project, I feel like my generation, we're really disconnected from each other. I had a lot of time when I first moved here to just kind of like be out and be observing people, and I noticed that a lot of people under 35 walk with their heads down, and they don't engage with the world around them. And I don't know if it comes from like insecurity of being young or not being secure with yourself yet, but I noticed a lot of older people are really outwardly friendly. And I kind of wanted to write something that spoke to this feeling of loneliness I feel like my generation has, and really kind of like making people feel connected through loneliness, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but I think that it is like something that everyone, or that people in my generation can relate to, seeing that there's all these crazy statistics coming out that we're the most depressed, we're the most suicidal, we feel the most alone. And I feel like I've been writing to kind of like encapsulate our generation and get our generation to maybe think about why we are the way we are and how we can, just connect with people more. All we really have in this life is connection with people. I want to leave a positive mark on people, whether it be through really small things like just, talking to somebody while in line to getting a coffee, or, if someone cuts me off in the car, not freaking out, but like, just trying to exist peacefully with people. And I think trying to come back to this mindfulness center and remember to connect with people, and that this world is big, and we're all living in the same world, and it might just be one universe that we're living in, but we're all having our own unique individual experiences. So just positively contributing to other people's experiences is really important.
Do you see a result like in being kinder?
Yeah.
When people get giving back that to you?
In a selfish way, I think, like for me, obviously my life feels better. And then in a non-selfish way, I think, other people's lives feel better. So why not act that way? But it is hard because we all have egos that we're trying to protect. So to actually like be vulnerable and soften yourself and, be kind to everyone is a lot less simple than it sounds. Even though we should all be like that, it's hard. As I've gotten older and I don't compete anymore, there's a couple like quieter secret spots where there's no service, and that's like my favorite thing because it's just you and your friends out on the water. Like I love making edits and making surf films, which is what I love to do. I love to travel with my friends and document the surfing that we're doing, and to do that is amazing. It's the dream. I'm really stoked to be doing it.